I will escape from my briefing notes, which are available to all those interested, and try to elaborate a little bit on what has already been said. First of all, a few words about the North-South Center, which might not be known to everybody here. The North-South Center has been created 21 years ago, at the time when the Berlin Wall was falling down. And at that time, the main mission of the North-South Center was to promote global interdependence and solidarity among European population in order to make sure that the South would not be forgotten at the time where everybody was looking at the East. And what is interesting is that very recently, in May 2011, so a few months ago, a new statutory resolution has been adopted for the North-South Center by the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, which confirms the importance of this task. Of course, we heard many people telling us that a lot has been done, but a lot remains to be done, and adds a new task, which could also be something that we can reflect on for a new strategy, is to promote human rights and democracy outside Europe, beyond the borders of Europe, and especially in the neighbouring regions of Europe. Of course, there is a link between this new statutory resolution and the so-called Arab Spring. What is interesting also is that the North-South Center is an institution of the Council of Europe, but has a strong EU participation, as both the European Commission and the European Parliament, and more recently even the Committee of Regions of the EU, are members of the board of the North-South Center. So it's a rather rare example of not only substantial cooperation, but also institutional cooperation between two bodies, the Council of Europe and the European Union, which have still some progress to make in order to really work together. I come now to the ideas that I want to share with you, and I will use a glorious path by sharing this idea in order to make some structure in my thoughts. I will use the path of Abraham Lincoln, who used to say, if before deciding what to do, you should know where you come from and where you are. So first of all, where do we come from? Many things have already been said, so I can be quite brief. I think we come from 10 years of intensive work on raising awareness and promoting global education in Europe based on the MDGs. And I would like just to quote two important milestones in this work, which have already been mentioned, inclusive by my neighbour just right now, the Maastricht Conference in 2002, who has adopted a programme of action until 2015, and the European Consensus on Development Education, which is the effort of a multi-stakeholder process and which brings as it is called, a consensus on what is development education and what would we like to do together in order to promote development education. What is interesting in the picture that we have, if we ask ourselves, where do we come from, is that this is a rather complicated picture where many institutions and partners are active. And one of the challenges, which has been our common challenge, and I think that we have obtained quite good results in it, has been to work together. It was far from obvious 10 years ago. Many institutions, I have quoted the EU, the Council of Europe, who are doing their own activities but not always working together, but also the member states. A strong emphasis has been made by my neighbour, and rightly so, about the importance of complementarity between what is done in Europe at European level and at the level of member states. And of course the G network is particularly important in this respect, but also the very important influence and activity of civil society and my other neighbor here at my left, is leading one of the main civil society platforms, the Concord platform. She will tell you more about this participation. So one of the challenges has been synergies, complementarity, and I think we have managed quite a lot on this front over the last 10 years. Now, where are we? We are, as I mentioned, in a process where we have not only managed to have a better cooperation, but to institutionalize that cooperation through a multi-stakeholder process, which is supported politically and financially by the European Commission, and of course it's quite important to pay tribute to this support of the European Commission. National strategies have recently been adopted in quite a number of member states, both especially in new member states of the EU, but also in Portugal, the place where I come from. The North Centre is based in Lisbon, I forgot to tell you this. And we have made a special targeted efforts on new member states of the European Union. That means in Central and Eastern Europe, but also in the Mediterranean, countries like Cyprus and Malta. This special effort has been made through a joint management agreement which has been signed by the European Commission and by the North-South Centre. This joint management agreement was targeting the period 2009 and 2011, so we are at the last year of implementation of this joint management agreement. The DEAR study is also an important achievement because it shows us a picture of what has been achieved and also gives us a number of recommendations on what kind of priorities we should implement in the future. And last but not least, we have recently been able to adopt the first European legal standard on global education through a recommendation by the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, adopted a few months ago in May 2011. On all this, and I come now for my last minute to what to do, we can follow the following priorities. First of all, of course, build on what we have achieved so far, and it's not a few. Second is to broaden the geographical scope. We have this recommendation of the Council of Europe, which is now brought to the attention of 47 European member states. And we can also target neighbouring countries. Some of them, like Morocco, are members of the North-South Centre. The third thing is continuing our efforts in bringing global education into the formal education. We had the Polish State Secretary rightly mentioning that this is an important progress made in Poland, but you know that Poland is not the majority. We have many European states don't have global education or development education in their formal education system, and this is something which would be important. And this means also working more intensively with the ministries of education. The fourth important thing is continuing to make a strong link between global development education and human rights education. That's more and more important, not only to promote awareness on the importance of development, because also we have now a very worrying situation in Europe where radical political parties are having more and more success. And this is another reason why we should link our efforts with all efforts made in the field of human rights education. And the last thing is to have a new focus on citizens' responsibilities, because it's important to promote the fact that we don't have only rights, we also have responsibilities. We have responsibilities towards our societies, we have responsibilities towards the planet, we have responsibilities towards new generations. And to conclude, I would just like to mention that the North-South Centre will be organising in May 2012 in Lisbon a pan-European conference bringing together all the stakeholders and trying to adopt an action plan for the years 2012 until 2015. Thank you.